Great. Let's see here. Do you want to unplug anything? Beautiful. Thanks very much. My name is Ian Gillis. I'm Senior Open Data Analyst at the City of Edmonton. This is ultimately a talk about multimodal networks. Those are networks or graphs in which nodes or vertices represent more than one type of entity, in this case, individuals, groups of individuals, and data products, and in which ties and edges between those nodes represent different kinds of relationships, flows of information, and flows of people, ties between people. Now that might sound kind of fancy, and quantitative modeling and analysis of those relationships could actually be a pretty interesting line of formal inquiry. But today I'm just interested in sharing a subset of these relationships that I've become aware of as a member of the City of Edmonton Open Data team. On the topic of relationships, I acknowledge and respect the Lekwungen peoples on whose territory we gather today. The City of Edmonton also acknowledges that the traditional land on which it is situated is in Treaty 6 territory. We would like to thank the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked that territory for centuries, such as the Cree, Dene, Anishinaabe or Saulteaux, Nakota Iska or Nakota Sioux, and the Niitsitapi or Blackfoot peoples. We also acknowledge Edmonton as being home to many Métis, Region 4, and is also home to one of the largest communities of Inuit, thanks very much, south of the 60th parallel. It's a welcoming place for all peoples who come from away, from Newfoundland, like myself, to further afield from right around the world to now share Edmonton as a home. The City of Edmonton, as a corporation, offers more than 70 services to over 1 million citizens. Its employees are united by a shared promise that we work together to progress in the direction set by our elected officials to enable a better life for all Edmontonians. That direction and our alignment is guided by Edmonton's City Plan, which was approved by City Council in December of 2020, and it charts how we will grow into a city that has the benefits we enjoy today, along with new opportunities for the future. And it combines both a municipal development plan and a transportation master plan. It sets strategic direction for the way Edmonton grows. It touches on pretty much every aspect of life in Edmonton, from open spaces, employment and social networks, and mobility systems. Present the cultural commitments that we City of Edmonton employees agree to uphold. And in particular, I hope to leave you today with a positive impression of how open data as a program, as a team, and as a set of practices and data artifacts is integrated in particular. And I believe that we are helpful, accountable, and excellent in our way as a result of that integration. The city collects and generates huge amounts of diverse data in the course of providing all those 70 different lines of service. Open data, again, as a team, a program, and as a set of practices and data artifacts, is a well-connected actor in this, our first multimodal network. The variety and kinds of data and being a service-oriented business whose customers, that is citizens, relate to the city both as an organization and as a place means that different publishing mechanisms are required to best serve the widest number of customers. Space-related and space-dependent queries are often best served by maps and location-aware tools. So we have public maps and public geospatial assets. Not all data is suitable for release under the Open Government License. But information sharing within the organization is a key component of operational efficiency. So we have the internal data portal, which is actually powered by CCAN, and that's designed for sharing information effectively and securely within the corporation. And we have additional checks and balances on access and use of that data. So the situation is complex, but it's not unduly complicated. Our open data team is connected to all of these groups and processes. Rather, as transportation networks rely on hubs, we facilitate communication between these different groups and the public, who are not explicitly shown here. We are also responsible for implementing technical changes required to ensure that we meet our commitments to be a capital O open organization, while we still meet our diverse obligations as custodians of valuable and often sensitive data and information. I've conceived this talk through the lens of the cultural commitment integrated. And I hope to show that we are all connected and working together to achieve our success as a city, both across the corporation and with our external stakeholders. And I expect that this is representative of many successful open data programs, both in government and in the private sector, as we've heard this weekend. I suppose it's this week. It's not a weekend. Feels like a weekend. So I'd like to proceed with 3 brief case studies. And for each of them, I'm going to highlight a mobility systems themed asset in our data catalog and give a cursory introduction to the work that one of my colleagues is doing in the city related to that asset. So last prefatory remark is what is a mobility system? And it's essentially about moving people and goods in an efficient and accessible manner. Any vibrant and prosperous city must have integrated transportation networks that provide residents with convenient options. It should facilitate opportunity, connection, and health while being safe, inclusive, and barrier-free for all users. The mobility system provides different ways to move around the city and will evolve as the city evolves. It includes 3 networks. The active transportation network creates critical connections using walking, rolling, and biking, allowing people to access destinations, amenities, daily needs, and recreation. The transit network provides citywide, district, and regional connectivity using mass transit and local transit services. And finally, the roadway and goods movement network facilitates economic development, providing access to business and employment, and supports regional connection and prosperity. So the first of these case studies hinges upon a relatively new open data set that's called micromobility trips and was released just earlier this year. It was kind of the impetus for this presentation in that it was the first major data product that I had built out end to end after I joined this team last year. Micromobility refers to transportation options provided by very light vehicles such as electric scooters, electric skateboards, and shared and electric bicycles. In our City of Edmonton context, that means dockless e-scooters and e-bicycles, and those rentals have been operating seasonally in Edmonton since 2019, currently offered by the vendors Lime and Bird Canada. MDS, or the Mobility Data Specification, is an open data standard developed and maintained by public and private bodies under the auspices of the Open Mobility Foundation, and its purpose is to enable right-of-way regulation and two-way communication between mobility companies and local governments. It's inspired by the GTFS and the GBFS, both of which we also publish on the Open Data Catalog. But unlike MDFS, GBFS is intended to be consumer-facing. MDS providers, interestingly, are required to also expose a public-facing GBFS feed according to the MDS specification. So to provision this data, our team ingests these feeds via REST API. And raw feeds, which are only available to municipalities and the companies themselves, provide very detailed sensor information. The risk for re-identification means it's way too dangerous to publish to the public as is, and there are contractual barriers to doing that besides. So our team ingests and massages that data in a data pipeline to make it suitable for use with Tableau. That's Edmonton's visual analytics and self-service BI tool of choice. To support that self-service analytics, we convert timestamps to local time, and we pre-join each trip's start and endpoint with our neighborhoods and ward boundaries. This tidied data, along with the raw JSON file converted to tabular format, is made available to those areas of the city who legitimately need access to it to support data-informed decision-making in their jobs. We reuse that internal data source as the source for our open data set. We work collaboratively with Parks and Roads, with both of our vendors, our privacy, ethics, and legal advisors, and we established a mutually agreeable process whereby we further filter and aggregate data to protect individuals' privacies based on precedents set by the open data teams of the cities of Calgary and Louisville, Kentucky. The open data release is further delayed by 6 months to respect competitive interests in the market. Nevertheless, it allows citizens and journalists to see usage patterns over time at a geographical resolution that is smaller than the neighborhood. We released the dataset on March 29th, and the next morning, before breakfast, an Edmonton resident had already made a Tableau public dashboard and posted it to Twitter, so we were pretty pleased about that. These micromobility offers, these devices, don't only create sensor data. There's a lot of data generated in the processes related to the micromobility programs, from procurement, Parks and Roads, urban planning, infrastructure, our curbside strategy team, community standards, bylaw enforcement, 311. These areas, their work and their data is all, and those interrelationships are all complex and valuable, but I can't cover them all here. In general, some of this data can be used to do things in concert with other data sources in particular, to do things like encourage the adoption of corrals in addition to our current dockless model, to help with the negotiation and enforcement of certain contractual aspects with vendors, or to incentivize changes in fleet composition. That's the relative deployment of scooters versus bicycles. These data can also be used to support injury investigations and to address resident inquiries, including complaints. So one colleague of mine who's working to bring a business analyst's clarifying lens to create a holistic view of the impacts of all of these interrelated systems related to micromobility is Mark Hill. I spoke to Mark about his work. He's a very humble guy, and he was at pains to emphasize to me that his is just one piece of the pie, and that there's a lot of work using this data going on in the city. Mark specifically, his analysis helps to inform and guide discussions around fee schedules and cost recovery regarding micromobility data. And the data source that the Open Data team have provisioned through the internal data portal allows him and other analysts across the city to readily mine that data for patterns in usage by day, time, and space. I've got a couple of concrete examples that I'm allowed to share. So this is just a pretty plain Jane tabulation. The significant narrative here is that in this calendar year, Edmonton had over 1 million trips using these devices, totaling over 2 million kilometers. That's 6 round trips to the moon. It's not bad. Or sorry, 3 round trips, 6 each way. Yeah, there we go. And without having that vendor supplied data being made available in a readily digestible format, that type of insight is just invisible and lost. As a second example, this is a static shot of a Tableau dashboard that was initially built to assist a project manager for an upcoming neighborhood renewal project in the neighborhood of Oliver. This same dashboard now also assists other internal customers to review this usage and traffic patterns to make data-informed decisions that include an active transportation perspective that is focused on shared micromobility. So, vendor-supplied scooter and e-bike data is only part of this mobility system story. Not everyone uses these services, and they only operate from spring to late autumn. So I'd like to turn to eco-counter data, which is mode independent and operates year-round. Eco-counter data gives us cyclist and pedestrian counts throughout the city, and it refers to both the heat and electrical induction loop sensors themselves and the name of the vendor. Our monitoring and analysis team provides this data to us, and their mandate is to acquire, manage, and report mobility data within the City of Edmonton. And they utilize emerging technologies and computing capabilities to support transportation-related, data-driven decision-making. My colleague Stefanis, his area maintains an internal to the city website with a host of resources related to their work, from a linked catalog of datasets and analytical products to an enumeration of the different areas of the city that their work supports, including areas I didn't mention earlier, including transit, infrastructure, and waste. Of these many datasets, many are already public-facing on the City of Edmonton website, but not yet available on the Edmonton Data Portal. And improving this situation is on our roadmap. Including it on the Open Data Portal improves discoverability. It includes enhancements to the ease of reuse through the in-browser tools and consistent API that our platform provides, and also clarifies the licensing of the data. Publishing of raw data isn't necessarily accessible to all users, however, especially when there are millions of records, as in our bike and pedestrian counts dataset. The specific dataset provided by monitoring analytics that I'd like to call your attention to today. Our Open Data team is proud to have been awarded the Canadian Open Data Society's Accessibility and Open Data Award last year. And my supervisor, Steve Nightingale, gave a presentation at this summit about our desire to improve our catalog to better serve all users. So we're heartened to see that this data is also being presented using other avenues, if you'll pardon the transportation pun, such as here's annual average weekday traffic being distributed through a public-facing interactive ArcGIS web map application. And this Tableau dashboard, which is published on the City of Edmonton's Tableau public profile, that's given more than 6,000 viewers an easy-to-use way to explore millions of records of eco-counter data. Of course, the raw data is available on the Open Data Portal for those who want it and know how to use it, all 6 million rows of it. Our team is currently in the midst of updating our processes to keep up with vendor changes, meaning we need now to read from APIs instead of vendor-provided files through an FTP server. Importantly, changes like that, while it's kind of frustrating sometimes, also present our team with the opportunity to improve our ETL, that's extract, transform, load jobs, to make them more efficient and resilient as we ourselves continue to learn and grow. Unlike the Tableau dashboard, our Open Data release includes outliers caused by sensor malfunctions stemming from electrical malfunctions to vandalism. So when I spoke to Stevinus, he shared a great little anecdote of a citizen developer who wrote into Stevinus remarking on an evident data error from the eco counter in McKinnon Ravine. It's shown here in a still from our open data set of eco counter locations. It led to an investigation and an entry on this public-facing Google Sheet, which is used not only to provide context about the data set to citizen analysts, but has also served as a tool to foster discussion with our vendors. I was able to reach out to the user and to learn that they were using how they were using this open data set. They responded that they use eco counter data to track how cyclist traffic has changed year to year at different locations. And he pointed out that having access to the raw data was very helpful, since it's a bit tricky to make historical comparisons using the Tableau. So different audiences all being served by a single data set, which is kind of a nice story of efficiency. So my main layer in the mobility systems network, or the mode, has been active transportation. I'm intending to be human scaled and human centered in these little case studies. But of course, anyone who's been to Alberta, like cars and trucks on our roadways remain and will remain an important component of all three networks that make up our mobility systems. Driver feedback signs are intended to be read by and influence the behavior of cars via their drivers. So I'd like to frame this last example in terms of people, specifically their safety and well-being. And I'd like to shift the focus from cars to the people that drive them and the people who don't. That's pedestrians, cyclists, skateboarders, scooter renters. But they're all impacted, sometimes tragically, fatally, by cars. So the City of Edmonton has over 200 of these solar-powered driver feedback signs, they're called, throughout Edmonton. They're posted alongside speed limit signs, and oh gosh, I'm sorry. Yes, they're posted along speed limit signs, and they display your current speed right next to the posted limit. If you are going a bit above, it'll flash. If you're going 10 or more above, or so I'm told, it will flash the words too fast or slow down. The signs are just one of a really comprehensive set of tools that we have in the city. It's a friendly reminder to slow down and just be safe. And it's all integrated under Vision Zero. Vision Zero, for context, is the long-term goal of zero traffic-related fatalities and serious injuries. And since the City of Edmonton adopted Vision Zero in 2015, the same year that we signed the open data policy, traffic-related fatalities have decreased by half. Serious injuries have decreased by 32%, and pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries have decreased by 27%. So this is working. It's been adopted, that's Vision Zero, has been adopted by leaders in transit safety in countries such as Australia. I'm not sure if Stephen is here right now. Yep, fantastic. And England, and major cities around the world from Oslo to San Francisco. Vision Zero has 5 principles, which are shown here. I'd like to draw your attention to the first: no loss of life is acceptable, and that's what gives the movement its name. Traffic fatalities and serious injuries are preventable, and eliminating fatalities and serious injuries requires Edmontonians and the city to prioritize safety. A little bit of corporate speak. So the safety mobility strategy explicitly ties traffic safety to that city plan, that guiding document for all of our employees and the city's vision. One of the principles of the safe mobility strategy is that we are informed by analytics, lived experience, and research. The City of Edmonton works closely with Edmonton Police Services and the University of Alberta to collect and analyze quantitative data to inform traffic safety actions. And some, actually quite a lot of that quantitative data in our portal comes from those 200 plus driver feedback signs around the city. Because of the volume of data generated by each device, we've decided to split that data across many data sets on the open data portal. It's one per numbered site. And these related data sets are also a great example of the opportunities to revisit our technical processes I alluded to earlier. We've recently rewritten this ETL job that publishes these data sets, and we've cut 90 minutes from our execution time on a weekly job. So that frees up server bandwidth, frees up compute cycles, and in a small way, it also moves the needle a little bit on our carbon footprint. So I spoke to Ahmed Abou-Hassan about his work as safe mobility analyst at the city. And we were introduced because my work to speed up that process temporarily broke one of his maps. So that's how I got to know him. Unlike some of the data sets that I've alluded to where employees use a restricted and more granular data set than what we openly release, Ahmed actually uses the driver feedback signs on the open data portal directly in his analysis. At a high level, each week, a sample of perhaps 10 driver feedback signs are switched to what's called a stealth phase. And that is, they continue to record feedback, but their displays that flash and give feedback to the users are turned off. And then a week-over-week comparison for data of stealth sites compared to sites operating in a normal phase can identify the degree to which displays influence driver behavior at a given site. Adding a geospatial component to this analysis and considering the data in light of other data sets, such as traffic volume, allow Ahmed and others on his team to answer questions like, where should we install a new sign? And where can we redeploy an underperforming sign to maximize its benefit in influencing public safety? Ahmed related to me that the city fields a lot of citizen requests, often funneling through city councilors actually, about traffic safety, including speeding complaints. And he shared a specific example of this and how Safe Mobility used DFS open data to answer questions raised by residents of the Rosenthal neighborhood in West Edmonton regarding the safety and speeds on Rosenthal Way. And I'm just going to give them their words. So the Safe Mobility team responded with this. The DFS collected data between August 15th and September 17th. The daily average traffic volume was at its highest during the last few days of August, averaging over 1,700 vehicles per day. But it dropped to an average of 940 vehicles per day in the remaining period. The figure below shows how traffic volume varied during the monitoring period. They continued. Additionally, the speed compliance improved slightly since the DFS started collecting data. It ranges between an average minimum of 53% and an average maximum of 89%. Based on this, it can be said that Rosenthal Way is performing better than most 40-kilometer-an-hour roads in the city, which have an average compliance of just 44%. The figure below shows the daily variation of the minimum and maximum compliance rates as recorded by the DFS. Whole bunch of people are due thanks for my being here today in their time to share their expertise as I prepared this data, for supplying my funding and giving feedback in an earlier version of this talk. Thanks to all of them. And just to close, mobility data are but some of our holdings. We have over 2,000 assets on data.edmonton.ca. And although I could have featured different people and different aspects of our catalog or constructed this talk around a different theme entirely using our catalog, from micromobility to eco-counters to driver feedback signs, the City of Edmonton has a strong network of data sources and talented people who share, analyze, and interpret those data sources to support data-informed decision-making in matters related to mobility systems, both directly and indirectly. I hope you've gotten a bit of a sense that our open data team is integrated into these processes, and that our role is more nuanced than just publishing data to the open data portal. I hope that you're convinced by this evidence that the City of Edmonton is actively committed to being open by default. And a vibrant open data program can be integral to any municipality's goal of working together, aligned with City Council, to enable a better life for all of its citizens, however your municipality words that ambition. So feel free to reach out to us at data.edmonton.ca, opendata@edmonton.ca, both shown there. And with that, thanks very much for being here, and I'm happy to take any questions. Full 7 seconds. Nothing.
That's okay.
That's okay.
That means you did a great presentation.
That's all right. I'll just cry in the hotel. It's perfect. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you again. And now I know the main room, they're 5 minutes behind as well. So basically it's lunch, so enjoy.